Hello and welcome, everyone. We're back for episode 2 of the Back Road here in In Between Media. Thanks for everyone who tuned in last time, and we're glad you came back. Or if you're watching for the first time, glad you're watching. My name's Elliot Hicks. With me have the two best analysts you can ask for, Jared Bakaysa and Seth Woolock. And just like all the Fox ads have said, this season really has started as the best season ever, honestly. The first 3 races have been so unexpected. Guys, how are you enjoying this season so far?
Oh, I'm enjoying it pretty good. We've gotten 3 different winners in the first 3 races. Like as Fox said, this has been the best season ever. And you look at like the point standings too, you got a lot of different names up there, and it's just been really competitive. I'm getting like early 2000s vibes where everyone in the field seems to be competitive. So I'm hoping this continues as the season goes on.
Yeah, super exciting season so far, guys. I've really enjoyed just the competition of the racing so far. A lot of crossover and moves, a lot of people kind of willing to risk it, and the packages are working great so far. I think a lot better than 2020, and I'm excited for what the rest of the season can bring.
This is certainly on track to be that best season ever, like Fox has been saying, and like I said. So we're 3 races in now already. It feels like we just were sitting here yesterday previewing the Daytona 500, which was won by Michael McDowell out of nowhere. You've already heard all about that race. You know, the Daytona 500 is the most covered. We're going to focus here in our first segment, the BYWAY breakdown, on the last 2 races. The Daytona Road Course won by Christopher Bell for his first Cup win, and Homestead Miami Speedway. Normally at the end of the year, it was kind of weird watching that as the 3rd race of the year instead of in championship weekend in November. William Byron won his 2nd career race. So this is honestly going to be nuts. The playoff bubble is shaking up weird. We've had 3 very unique winners. None of the dominant guys have been able to win so far. What have you guys thought about these races? Seth, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so obviously, a first-time winner in Christopher Bell, that was really cool to see on the road course, him track Joey Logano down in the last few laps. And then William Byron comes out. He gets his 2nd career win here at Homestead. I think a big underlining trend right now is this parts freeze that we've been hearing about in NASCAR over the last year. I think that's allowing some of these teams who haven't had the same speed as these big teams like the Stewart Haas and like the Joe Gibbs Racing to finally catch up. And it's really exciting to see. Jared, what's been your takeaways here?
So far, I think like you were saying, like I think with no practices, also I think that plays as a huge factor in there as well, because literally everyone's kind of like guessing with setups, and especially like this year at the road course, because you had last year they ran it with a different package. This year they come in with a completely different package for that. I mean, some of the guys got to run the Bush Clash at the road course, but like you obviously saw guys like Christopher Bell, Michael McDowell, those guys who didn't run in the Clash. They had a really good showing there. So I think not having the practice time and the qualifying stuff, I think that puts the skill into the driver's hands more than it does like the horsepower and the engines and the stuff the teams would normally be able to put into on race weekends whenever there are practice times and qualifying.
Right. And this very unique season, again, no qualifying for most of the races, no practice other than, of course, Daytona. And we won't see practice or qualifying again until the Bristol Dirt Race and then Circuit of the Americas after that. So that really has equaled the playing field. And that has really changed some parts of our top 10 rankings. We gave you our top 10 heading into the year, and we have had a little bit of change. So once again, we took all 3 of our top 10s, worked out the averages. So we'll give you numbers 10 to 8 first. Number 10, we have Martin Truex Jr. in the 19. Number 9, Kyle Larson with a strong showing in the number 5 car. And in 8th, Alex Bowman, driver of the number 48. These guys, they've all been around. You know, none of them have really been contending for wins so far, but neither of them have really been that bad either. Who's a guy that really sticks out to you among that 3, Jared?
I would say Kyle Larson, like not racing like the whole only he I mean he only had 4 races last year, so he's been off for almost a year now. And the fact that he's like stayed clean out at the Daytona 500, you know how crazy the 500 gets. He for the first time on the Daytona road course, I thought he did pretty good. And then last week, obviously, it was Homestead, which is one of his favorite tracks. Anyways, he did as we pretty much expected, running top 5, top 10 most of the day. So I'd say with the lack of experience he's had in with this new team and adjusting wise, I think that's a pretty good start for his season.
Yeah, I've definitely enjoyed watching Kyle Larson come back here with Hendricks. It's been fun. I think he's got a lot of great history in these tracks coming up. So Larson's a guy to watch for sure. To me, though, I have Martin Truex Jr. circled. We know he's great at Las Vegas. We know he's great at Phoenix. I'm really excited to see what he can do there. And he's been contending. I mean, he was contending both at the road course and at Homestead. So I'm really excited to see what he can do here. He obviously looks like one of the faster Joe Gibbs cars. It's just he's been better on the short run rather than the long run. So I'm excited what he can kind of do now that we're getting to really the core of the schedule.
Yeah, I do really think that we'll see all three of these guys in victory lane potentially sooner rather than later. They've all got a lot of potential. The guy I'm going to touch on, Alex Bowman, surprise, surprise, if you've read any of my stuff or anything like that, you know that I've transitioned from Dale Jr. to Alex Bowman, but it has given me, of course, a unique perspective. Obviously, you're going to follow your favorite driver a little more than everyone else. This Las Vegas race is going to be a major inflection point for Bowman and this 48 team. That team did very well at both Vegas races last year. Honestly, could have won both of them early in the year before COVID hit. He came down pit road with Ryan Blaney, and that tire strategy didn't work out on a late restart. And then at Las Vegas, everything was turned upside down in the playoffs, and Kurt Busch ended up winning that. It has been not a bad start to the year for the 48, but they really have not got the finishes in any of those three races that they've shown. He seemed to be disappointed in the 9th place run at Homestead. The Daytona road course, I mean, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't all that good either, and then got taken out in that lap 14 wreck in Daytona with the pole winning car. This is a very streaky group. Of course, he brought all the guys from that 88 team the last few years to the number 48. They've been very streaky. They're either going to get real hot like they did in the playoffs last year or real cold like they did through the summer heading into the playoffs. So this Vegas race, if it doesn't go their way, kind of like the other three races have not gone their way, it could go very badly heading into the next few races for Bowman. But if he's able to get a really good finish, I think that you will see more playoffs Alex Bowman and not last summer Alex Bowman. But like I said, all three of these guys doing very well. I've been impressed with Larson, and I think Truex is going to have more than one win this year. So now we'll go with number 7 through 5 in our top 10, and I think this one's going to be exciting. Number 7, we've got Joey Logano in the 22. Number 6, Michael McDowell in the 34. We touched on him a little bit, and I have a feeling we'll talk about him quite a bit. And at number 5, Brad Keselowski in the number 2 car. I'll start with this one in that Michael McDowell. I think that this is going to be a very good year for that 34 team. Last year, you saw him. Of course, he obviously didn't win last year, didn't really contend for wins at any point in the season. But more often than not, you looked at that leaderboard, and the 34 car was a lot higher than you thought he would be. He had a lot of good top 15, even sometimes top 10 finishes, even at tracks that you wouldn't expect him to. They were, of course, not all on Daytonas and Talladegas. He did well at road courses. He did well in a couple intermediate races. He's only one of only 2 drivers who has finished top 10 in all 3 races this year, Kevin Harvick being the other, and you may see him pop up in these rankings here in a little bit. But I think that the 34, obviously, I do not think McDowell is talented enough or the team is good enough to contend for a championship. But this is a good enough season. Obviously, it's going to be probably the best season that Front Row Motorsports ever has had and maybe ever will have. And this team legitimately has a chance to advance past the first round of the playoffs, which would be, of course, it's not much for any of the big teams, but it would be wildly past any expectations anyone had for that 34 team heading into the year. Now, I know you guys might have some different opinions on him. What do you guys think about this group of 3 that we have here, McDowell and the 2 Penske cars?
I think that's a pretty good ranking where we have Logano was contending for the 500, obviously leading on the last lap before getting taken out. And obviously he finished second at the road course. And then what happened at the Homestead race is he tried a different strategy because the field was kind of spread out there. So he was like more back in the pack. So we figured maybe if he came down pit road and got fresh tires, that'd bring more. Didn't really draw that many people there, but he had a decently fast car at Homestead whenever he was running close to up front, but that's a good ranking for there. Same thing with Keselowski. He's been doing pretty solid this year. Like obviously he almost had a chance of winning the 500. And then like you said with McDowell, like he's been he surprised me this year. That's the big surprise. Like it's not, I would never would have thought like any time that I'd see a Front Row Motorsports car in a top 10 ranking for us. Like I know they have had a couple lucky wins with David Reagan back in the day, but having Michael McDowell a winner, then 3 top 10s, that's pretty impressive for him. But it's kind of to go along with the Bowman thing. The next couple races, I think, are going to be huge. If he can show consistent speed, like at the intermediates, because I think we have Las Vegas and Atlanta coming up 2 of the next 3 weeks. So if he puts up good numbers there, like that shows that they have a really good intermediate track program. And then if they do decent at Phoenix, that could show that they have a good short track program. So really these next couple races are going to be a huge test if he can consistently stay this way, or if he's going to fall off back to reality like we would normally see a Front Row Motorsports team in the past.
Yeah. A couple of things here on Michael McDowell and the Penske boys is as far as the Penske guys, like we know what they're capable of. There's, they're coming in right around where we had them in our initial ranks. So no surprises there. Also not taking a victory lap yet, but I was low on Ryan Blaney coming into the season. He has so far lived up to that. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Ryan Blaney and the Penske guys. As far as Michael McDowell, this is really tough for me because I've always been a little bit of a Michael McDowell truther. In fantasy NASCAR leagues the last couple of years, he's always a guy I try to pick up in the later rounds of the beginning of the season. We know he's good at road courses. We know he's good at these super speedways. The one big thing with Michael McDowell that I was really hesitant even coming into this last week is Front Row Motorsports has never had a top 10 finish at a 1.5-mile track. That's really, I guess, where my biggest pause is, and it will continue to be for Michael McDowell. If he can come out at Las Vegas and Phoenix, and if he can, run inside that top 15, I'll be much more confident. Just a little bit insight how we do these rankings to our listeners and our viewers is that we all make our top 10 rankings, and then it's the consensus ranks. So Michael McDowell, he was outside of my top 10. And I understand why you guys have him in there. And the one thing I think that McDowell has going for him right now is looking around the points. He's going to be one of the top Fords in the field for a long time right now. So Ford might continue to invest money into that team, into Michael McDowell, and it might help him put out better race cars because they have speed right now, speed that you did not see at these intermediate tracks last season.
Right. The money from the 500 win and making the playoffs is going to help that team from years to come because of how NASCAR's payout structure works. So this could be just the beginning for Front Row Motorsports. Who knows? But it's been successful. And just to show the parity, even though we average rankings out, I had McDowell ranked number 4. Seth didn't even have him in the top 10. So that's how crazy this stuff can get. So, all right, our championship 4, so to speak, for this week, we have Kurt Busch at number 4, Chase Elliott, the defending champ, at 3, Kevin Harvick is number 2, Denny Hamlin at number 1, Hamlin just barely edging out Harvick for the top spot in our ranking. So these 4, at least 3 of the 4, your tried and true guys. Kurt Busch has really jumped up the rankings in the last couple of weeks. What do you guys think about this group of 4?
I think Kurt Busch is not getting as much attention as he possibly should be getting, especially the last 2 races have really stuck out with me. At the Daytona road course, you had that one incident where Kurt Busch literally just drove right through the grass because he hit one of those turtles or something. Most people would think
that he hit a turtle. I think he just kind of lost it and then just went straight into the grass.
Yeah.
And this is when he was leading as well.
Yeah, he was leading, I remember, and
Kurt Busch.
All of a sudden he's in the grass. All of a sudden I see him out driving through the grass in the lead. I'm well, he might be done. And that's probably what a lot of people thought he'd be done, but he drove back through the field. He got a top 5. So that was pretty good at the road course. And then at Homestead, 4th place, and he had to pit for a loose wheel. You'd think he's going to finish a lap down in the 20s or whatever. Drove the whole way back up and finished 8th in that race. So he lost 4 spots out of that, but the fact that he made up all that time in such short of laps, I thought that was pretty good driving skills there by him. So I think Kurt Busch is kind of under the radar right now, but I think he's going to continue to do pretty good, especially with Las Vegas coming up.
Yeah, Jared, I'm with you. And I've been paying extra special attention to Kurt Busch these last couple of weeks as I've had him here early in our fantasy NASCAR redraft league. And it's been really exciting to see that Chip Ganassi Chevy. They have so much speed this season, way more than last season. And obviously that win late in the year at Las Vegas definitely gives him some confidence heading into 2021. But like you said, Jared, if a couple things go differently at the road course, if he doesn't go through the grass and end up making the burnout on pit road, he could be, be the winner of that race. And I was honestly thinking he was the one car who had the speed to catch William Byron. And then obviously that loose wheel. So, if the one team can kind of clean things up here, he's obviously a huge favorite heading into these next couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm real high on Kurt Busch too. I had him at number 2 in my rankings, and it shows just how good a driver he is because you look at the other Chip Ganassi car, Ross Chastain. Of course, this is his first full season. He has struggled mightily, and Kurt Busch has been able to overcome adversity. And I know there's a lot of rumors swirling around this might be his last year, but I genuinely think he's going to be a championship contender this season if he can keep this going. But then again, I also think Michael McDowell is going to keep it going. So take that as what you will as to how accurate my rankings are going to be. Before we get into our horizon forecast here, quick honorable mention. I had Ryan Preece at number 10. That is a team that does not have a charter. He doesn't have full sponsorship. He's not guaranteed a full season ride. He's come out. He's done well. I believe he's in at least the top 16, if not even the top 10 in points. Team has done really well, and hopefully he'll be able to continue to run the full season there for JTG Doherty Racing. All right, so it is our Horizon Forecast, the next segment. The next couple of races coming up, we head out west for the stretch of Las Vegas Motor Speedway and Phoenix, where we'll host the championship round in November. Who are some of the guys that we're looking at in this race?
Someone I have on my radar right now, and I know this goes against the grain a little bit, but it's Kyle Busch. Jared's guy Rowdy over there. And yeah, you know, I know you gentlemen rightfully so had him outside of your top 10 when we did these ranks. For me, he came in at 7, right behind his brother Kurt. You know, Kyle Busch, these are 2 of his better tracks coming up. And I really think, like, Jared, you made a note about it earlier in the season, you know, switching pretty much his entire crew, almost taking on that 20 crew definitely sets him back a little bit. And we've seen Christopher Bell and the success he's had. And that definitely, I can understand the negative doubt surrounding Kyle Busch right now. But I mean, he's got to come back here. Like when you really look at what's going on, Las Vegas, he averages finishes around 12.4. That's his average for his career. Places in the top 10 about 53%. And he's even better at Phoenix. He averages 10.5 as far as his finish goes. And 71% of the time, he's in that top 10. So, you know, if he can catch a couple of breaks here, you know, maybe figure some things out with Joe Gibbs and the entire team, as you know, we haven't seen that team dominate as nearly as we thought they would. But I really think I'm hanging on to Kyle Busch. He, you know, if you're playing in redraft leagues out there, he's going to be cheaper right now. People are down on him, and you know, depending on starting position, I'm also looking at him in a little bit of DFS as well.
Yeah, I'm looking more at like some of the Ford guys and even like Martin Truex Jr. You know, Martin Truex Jr. obviously a couple years ago and even the past couple years, he's always been good at those 1.5-mile tracks. So Las Vegas is like a typical Martin Truex Jr. type of track. It's also like a Kevin Harvick type of track. Kevin Harvick obviously did pretty good last year at the 1.5-mile track, so I can see him if he gets the lead, he's probably not going to lose it. And then I'll also even say Joey Logano or Brad Keselowski. Those guys are usually good like early in the season. It's kind of weird because like you look at some of the trends, like they'll win a couple races early in the year, then kind of go cold during the summer and then pick things back up. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw one of the Penske guys in victory lane in the next 2 weeks.
Those are some pretty solid predictions. I honestly think that either Hamlin or Harvick is going to walk away with their first win in one of the next 2 or 3 races here. They're obvious buys, of course, but we have a buy and a sell picked out for these next couple of races. I'll start with mine. My buy is Kurt Busch. We just talked about him. I genuinely think he's going to be a championship contender. He'll rip off a win here at some point before too long, get himself locked into that playoffs, really be able to focus and be a contender for at least the final 8 spots, if not the final 4, once playoffs hit, if the team can stay consistent. For my sell, I have to go with the guy who I was really high with at the beginning of the year, Chase Briscoe in the number 14 car for Stewart-Haas. I mean, he absolutely dominated last year in the Xfinity Series, won 9 races. Probably should have won the championship if it weren't for the playoff format where we, you know, don't always see the best driver win the title as we've seen. But there have been times where he's just genuinely looked out of place at the road course and at Homestead. I remember at Homestead, at one point he was running 31st a lap down early in the race, and I don't think anything happened to him. I just genuinely think he couldn't quite figure out the feel of the Cup car. And I think that it is going to continue to be a struggle for Briscoe. Of course, I think that he will eventually rebound and his talent will start to show. He may even pull a Cole Custer and end up stumbling into a win of sorts later in the year. But right now, I don't think it's the time to roll with Chase Briscoe. Who do you guys got? Jared, we'll start with you.
For my buy, I got Kyle Larson. I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier with how he's been doing well. And I looked at the Daytona road course. If he didn't have that wheel hop issue, I think he has a potential chance at either a win or another top 5. And that would have given him 3 top 5s for the season and potentially second in points. So that's a pretty good indicator for him for me to buy. And especially looking at the next 2 races, he's done reasonably well. I have like in the last 6 averages, he's had an average finish of 6.8 at Las Vegas and a 7th place at Phoenix. So hopefully he could continue that trend and maybe help my prediction for a bye be pretty good. And then for my sell, I have Ryan Blaney. Like Seth kind of mentioned that earlier, he wasn't really high on the radar, and he's kind of lived up to that right now. He sits 24th in points. He's just had a tremendous amount of bad luck. I mean, you can't really blame luck on that, but still, like, it's one of those deals where you're 24th in points 3 races in, and people aren't really looking at you right now. And with how this competitive field is this year, like you don't really know who's doing what good or not coming in each week in and week out, because you got guys like even like Tyler Reddick's doing good, Chris Buescher's doing good, and even right now I even look at him as the 3rd best Penske car. So I think he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to be considered a buy. But right now I have Ryan Blaney as my sell.
You know, I'm not going to fight you on that one, Jared. You know, sticking with the theme of sells right now, what about Eric Almirola, guys? He has been a huge bust, and he has sank a lot of DFS lineups early this season. He's sank a lot of redraft teams. I know I had him on my redraft team, and the thing with Eric Almirola, I guess we should have really factored this in, is after like he late in the summer, he went on that really hot streak when he had 7 top 10s in a row. But since then, in his last 10 races, dating back to the final 7 from last season, his average finish right now is 21st. So that's not great. Like, yeah, that's like right now, to be a Stuart Haas guy and to have that premier team behind you and have Kevin Harvick as your right-hand man, and to really see that happening, I'm really discouraged from what I'm seeing from Eric Almirola. And if he's, if he doesn't improve over this back half of the season, he might be trying to find a new ride soon. So, Eric Almirola, he's definitely a sell for me right now. Obviously finished in the 30s, 2 of the 3 races so far, didn't look good in the road course, finished somewhere in the teens. So selling Eric Almirola, but a Stuart Haas guy I'm actually buying right now. How about Cole Custer? Dating back to last season as well, his last 10 races, his average finish is 17th right now. So, he had a great showing at the road course, was running in the top 5 a majority of that race, ended up falling back a little bit at the end, was running top 10 again here, down in Homestead, looked really fast, finally looked like he's kind of figured everything out, put it all together. It looks like he ran out of gas on the last lap, dropped about 15 positions on that last lap. So Cole Custer, especially if I'm in DFS, and he's a guy who normally isn't going to start towards the front. So if you're trying to get that bonus from moving up and finishing better than you started, Cole Custer is a guy I like in DFS and redraft moving forward.
Yeah, and I know we have Cole Custer on the buys list there, and I think he's done well too. But Stuart Haas racing kind of worries me a little bit. Of course, they do have Kevin Harvick, and he's dominant. But we've seen inconsistency in these other 3 cars, dating back to when you had guys like Clint Boyer and Daniel Suarez in those cars. When Harvick leaves, it could be a worry. When Harvick leaves, it could be worrisome for the Stuart Haas racing team. But let's talk about that another day. Let's take all this analysis. Let's take it, crumble it up, throw it out the window, because it's time for the most fun part of the show, the Backroad stories and Backroad advice. This week, we're talking about our favorite race day tradition. I know most of us have got them, and it's time to hear ours. Jared, what's your favorite race day tradition there? I see you got a couple of them jackets hanging up. Let's hear about some of the fun stuff you do on race day.
Well, my favorite thing is definitely wearing Kyle Busch gear, whether it's depending on what sponsor he's in that week, which hat or shirt I wear. I mean, I got a Interstate Batteries hat. I got a Fudge Brownie hat. I got the regular edition hat. I got some Snickers hats back there. I got a Pedigree hat, a Skittles hat, you name it. So I usually just support Rowdy out every week. I even started getting the old Rowdy Energy I found out in State College. So that was definitely a buy. I definitely recommend you viewers to try some Rowdy if you get it. So yeah, anything Kyle Busch related stuff, that's usually my go-to on Sunday.
Love it, Jared. As fans of this show might know, my former favorite driver was Jeff Gordon. So still have yet to really find a driver that I necessarily love as much as him. So Jared, while I respect, the gear and the hustle for Rowdy, I don't have that. Really, I have 2 race day traditions, though, that one way or another, they normally kind of fall into places. Jared knows this. I'm really big into appetizers. I love making different dips, buffalo chicken dip, taco dip. I have a cream cheese chicken dip. Really like turkey sliders with a ranch dip. Maybe mix it up a little bit of veggie pizza. So I always try to have some type of appetizer, before or during the race, or just, some good meal in general. So that's one of them. The other thing I really try to do a lot of the races, and it's to my fault sometimes because we also have a group chat going off, but I generally either start the race a little bit late or pause the race at some point and then end up going to get into something else for about 20 minutes to a half hour. Then I can just fast forward through a lot of the commercials. I'm a pretty impatient guy, so definitely do anything I can to get rid of some of those commercial breaks.
Yeah, Seth, I'll be honest with you. You're kind of nuts for how you go with these races. Sometimes it'll be 12, 24 hours before you even get to watch them. And you'll be able to sit down and just watch the whole thing and be totally oblivious. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like, with the live sports, I can't, go tape a game and completely shut myself off and not know what's happening. I'm either going to find out, even if I have to miss an entire race, I'll be like, all right, man, I'll just check my phone and check in and see who ends up winning it. And I'll be honest with you, even though I am such a big race fan, it was the first sport I really got into. I don't really have any specific race day traditions. I mean, I've got gear, I've got the shirts I wear, I try to sit down and watch all the races I can, but there's no one specific thing that I really do every week. And maybe that's why my drivers haven't won as many races as some other guys, because I'm sure everyone's got their superstition. You know, I have to do this or my guy's not going to win. I haven't done anything. And maybe that's why Dale Jr. ended his career with not too many wins, and Bowman's only got 2 for Hendrick. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. You know, it is nice, honestly, to just sit down, grab a beverage, whether it's a glass of water, something a little more, you know, like a Busch Light or something like that, or even an Amp Energy back in those days when they were all over the place, or a Diet Mountain Dew, or whatever kind of beverage was on the 88 car that week. You know, it's always just nice to just sit and hang out and watch a race whenever you can, regardless of the traditions that we all have.
No, I absolutely agree with you, Elliot. You know, it's all about watching the race and enjoying it, whether it's by yourself or, you know, be inclusive with it too. That's the one thing I've really tried to do the last couple of years is I've got my Uncle Greg into fantasy NASCAR and NASCAR in general. So it's been really fun to kind of shoot the shit with him and sit down, watch some races with him. And even my girlfriend, you know, she started to watch some races and kind of figure out who really is who in NASCAR. So that's one of the most fun parts to me. And I love talking to you guys on a weekly basis, breaking it down. Love talking to different people on Twitter and online about it. But I agree, man. Nothing just beats sitting there, and whether it's the day of or a day later, for me, I'll sit there and watch that race in entirety.
Well said. I commend you for that, because again, that would just drive me nuts having to wait 24 hours or any amount of time to know who won the race. But it's about time to wrap it up here on the Back Road on In Between Media. Of course, there's lots of great things coming around the docket on In Between Media, both on the website, on the YouTube channel, everything like that. Anything you want to promote this week in particular, Seth?
Yeah, so right now, we have a couple new YouTube series coming your way. Obviously, if you're here, you know about the Backroad. We obviously also just unraveled Pulp Fantasy, which is a new fantasy football show where our guy Scott Reinier, he compares different movie scenes, TV scenes, characters, different things with pop culture to fantasy football and the NFL in general. So that's been a lot of fun. We have about 3 columns coming out each week. In Between Fantasy Football podcast every other week. So we are packed loaded. Got a great staff. Thankful to have you 2 gentlemen on. Our video editor, behind the scenes guy, Sean Seaman, has been tearing it up as well. So just hats off to everyone at In Between Media. And we really do appreciate all the support. Feel free to leave us feedback. We're always looking to improve any way we can.
But all right, that's our show for this week. Thanks again for coming down the Back Road with us. It's been a great time. For Jared Bakaysa and Seth Woolock, we'll see you again in a couple of weeks for the next episode of the Back Road.